everyone, Mr. EVB here. So today I'm going to be bringing you guys my very late review for God of War, which is a new PS4 exclusive which was released back in April, and this is a game that I never got around to reviewing. I picked this up on release day, I played it for about 2 weeks, and then I beat it and everything, and yeah, just never got around to reviewing it. I imagine it was most likely because I was preoccupied with a bunch of movie reviews and other game reviews for the things that were coming out, but yeah, never talked about this game, and that's something I highly regret because God of War is one of the best games of this year, without a doubt. It is definitely one of my favorite PS4 exclusives. This is just a fantastic game from start to finish, so I really regret not reviewing this in time, but I still wanted to get this out before the end of the year, so I could, have a review so you guys could hear my thoughts on this before I do my top 5 or top 10 list for favorite games, whatever it is that I decide to do. So before I get into my actual review, I want to give you some of my history with this series. So I've actually never played the first two God of War games. I have played the third one, however. That game was originally released for the PS3 back in 2010. Never played it back then, but I did play it on the PS4 about 2 weeks before the new one came out. I bought the game back in 2017, I think, for really cheap. It was on sale on PS Store, so I bought it for $5 or whatever, and just never played it back then. I thought I would play it now though because there's a new one coming out, and I really enjoyed the game. It was just a fun hack and slash kind of game where you're just killing a bunch of gods and that kind of stuff. There wasn't too much to the characters, not too much to the story. It was just a fun game. But the new one looked like it was just going in a completely different direction for the series. It looked like it was going to be a lot more character driven and a lot more focused on the story, and that's exactly what happened. This game completely changed the God of War series for the better, in my opinion, because I really didn't care for Kratos as a character in the previous games. He just seemed like this big angry guy who killed people, and while it was very fun, it just didn't make for a super interesting or compelling character. But this game did so much for him, because this game is less focused on killing gods and more focused on Kratos' relationship with his son, who, is constantly failing Kratos. He doesn't know how to hunt, he doesn't know how to kill or anything like that, so Kratos is just left constantly disappointed in his son, and just seeing their growth over the course of this game was something that I was so invested in. The main story of this game is basically that Kratos' wife has died, and her last wish was to have her ashes spread on this mountain that is in this other world known as Jotunheim. So the whole game is about him and his son's journey bringing her ashes to the top of this mountain. So I was really invested in the story, and then of course you have bad things along the way, such as this one god named Baldur, who is trying to kill Kratos because he thinks that he's a god himself, which he is. So just a really interesting, compelling story that was so in-depth, which is something I wasn't expecting because, like I said, God of War 3 really wasn't that in-depth for me. This game was just so in-depth with the way it handled its characters and its story, so I was really invested in this world, and just such a fantastic game from start to finish. Let's talk about the graphics. The presentation in this game is amazing. The game looks absolutely beautiful. I played this on the PS4, and then I actually got a PS4 Pro a little bit after I started playing the game, so I managed to see this game on both consoles, and it looks beautiful on no matter what you're playing it on. It's just definitely an amazing looking game. On the PS4 Pro you have two options where you can play it in 4K 30 FPS or in 1080p with 60 FPS. I played it in 60 FPS whenever I was doing boss fights, so it would look a lot smoother, and then whenever I was walking around the world and stuff, I would have it in 4K just to kind of, take in all of that amazing look. And of course the HDR really enhances this game, probably better than the 4K does. But yeah, beautiful game. I rarely ever had frame rate drops. Sometimes in the 60 FPS it would drop a little bit, probably to around 50 or so, which is a pretty big drop, but still, it was so smooth for the most part. So this game looks amazing, and the presentation here is absolutely beautiful. Another thing that this game did that was really interesting was the fact that it's all one shot. It doesn't ever cut, so you never really have loading screens or anything ever. Whenever you're going to a place, you'll just walk right in. You won't have to, have some big loading screen or anything like that. So that was something that was really amazing. The camera never breaks. So really interesting design choice, and something that I thought really added to the game. Not something you always notice. It's just there, and it's just cool that they did that. So yeah, really great story, like I said, great graphics. Let's talk about the gameplay. So the gameplay in the previous games was pretty basic. It was just button mashing for the most part. There were some different combos and stuff you could do, but for the most part it was pretty basic combat. The combat in the new God of War is one of the best combat systems in a video game, in my opinion. It is so smooth. You could be playing this game for 30 hours like I have, and you'll still be amazed with the combat system because there's so many different moves and stuff you can do, and there's only 2 weapons in this game. 2 weapons. Do you realize how many games I get bored of because there's only like 10 or so? The fact that you only have 2 weapons in this, and I was still so invested and so into the gameplay, that tells you that they did a great job with the combat system. One of the weapons you have in this game is an axe, which you can basically throw around and then call it back to you, just like Thor's hammer. It can freeze enemies, and you can just do a bunch of cool, sick combos with that, you know, kicking enemies in the air and then throwing the axe into their face and then pulling it back. Tons of things you can do like that. You can use your fists. You can also use the Blades of Chaos. Those are back here. I preferred the axe overall though, just because there was way more cool combos and stuff you could do with it. But the combat system here has like no flaws. It is absolutely perfect. It is so smooth. It feels so great. You know, over the game you can just add upgrades to your weapons, make your axe deal more damage. You can choose all these different things for it. So tons of great little RPG elements in this game, as far as like crafting different types of armor and that kind of stuff, and upgrading your character by adding different types of ruins and that kind of stuff. So very interesting system here. It's not as in depth as like, you know, actual full-on RPG games, but there's just enough there to really give you some variety with what you want to do, and that was something that I really liked. I want to talk about the characters quickly, because the characters in this game were fantastic. Like I said, I loved Kratos. He is way better than he was in any of the previous games here. The new voice actor did a fantastic job with his performance. Just really liked Kratos all around here. Cared for his character a lot more, which is something that I didn't feel at all in the previous games. I also love the character of Atreus, which is Kratos' son. Again, you're just seeing this kid basically go from this really kind of wimpy kid to finding out that he's actually technically half a god, and that was something that I really liked. So seeing his character growth was really interesting. You can use him in combat as well to kind of help you and aid you with some little tiny techniques with his bow and arrow and that kind of stuff. And then you have Baldur, the main villain, the god of light, who is insane. This guy was one of my favorite video game bosses of all time. You fight him about 30 minutes into the game, and this is probably even my favorite boss fight of all time. It was so amazing, just the way the camera system worked with it being one shot and everything, and it was such a huge and grand boss fight that most games would have for the final boss fight, but you have this like 30 minutes in, and that is a little bit of an issue because the rest of the game never really matches up to that opening sequence. Maybe the final battle is kind of there, but there's nothing really in between those two areas that feel as grand, except for one fight where you fight a huge ass dragon. So the game never reaches that height again, but it's not really that huge of a negative because, like I said, you're still invested in everything else that's going on. So yeah, like I was saying earlier, this isn't as boss driven as the previous games. You only have about maybe 4 or so main bosses in this game compared to the previous ones where you'd have like, you know, 13 a game or something ridiculous. So that was maybe a little bit of a letdown for some players. For me, it wasn't a big deal because I knew what the game was going for. I know they're kind of setting up the big boss fight thing to be in the second game, so that was something I was completely fine with. The side missions here are serviceable. They're not anything amazing. There was one storyline that I really liked where you're basically saving all of these Valkyries where you have to fight their cursed boss fights, and those things were really tough. There's one in particular where they just basically combine every single ability and put it into one boss, and she was a total piece of crap to kill. I mean, she took me so long, probably about 30 tries, in order to actually kill this boss fight, but that feeling you get when you finally kill her, it's just so rewarding. So they did a really good job with the boss fights that they do have. There was a little bit of a lack of mini boss variety. They have these little mini bosses that can be pretty easy to kill, but they would always be the exact same thing. It would just be a troll, you know, and it just got a little bit repetitive after a while. That was one thing that I would say is kind of a little bit of a negative when it comes to the enemy types. When it comes to like the mini bosses, but the enemy types in general here are pretty solid. There's you know, maybe about 20 or so different enemies you'll fight, so it was pretty serviceable in the end. The campaign's pretty long as well. It's gonna probably take you around 20 or so hours to beat, which is a really good length, and then if you're doing side quests and everything, this could easily take about maybe 40 hours or so, depending on how much of this game you want to just leave yourself to just explore and stuff, because like I said, it is a beautiful game, and there are many worlds you can explore and see, so that's something that was really great there. The soundtrack is also fantastic. This game just has some amazing scores, some great vocalists here, so just overall, really great soundtrack. It has that big, boomy, deep sound that you want from the God of War games. And that also has some pretty emotional sounding themes, which I thought was really awesome as well. So
find your way home. You are free.
really great. All around, this game just had so much packed into it, and I just don't see anybody really hating this game for what it is, because it's such a fantastic game. I loved it so much. Definitely one of the best games of this year, if not the best so far. I don't know. It's very tough between this and Red Dead Redemption. I still have to 100% finish that game to kind of get my thoughts in there. So yeah, really, I don't have that many cons of this game. Like I said, there's some annoying side characters here that would get a little bit annoying at times, but it's not that big of an issue compared to everything else. There are some times where you'll have to kind of backtrack. You'll get to a location, it's like, okay, we're finally here, and then, oh, no, we need one more thing, so you have to go back and do something else, and that happens sometimes. That was actually tied into the story. It's not like you just forget something yourself, so that was a little bit annoying, but all of these things are such minor gripes compared to a game that is, you know, fantastic in the end. So I'm gonna give God of War a straight up 10. Like I said, those tiny gripes are so small, they don't really add up to anything that big. So overall, guys, fantastic game. If you have a PS4, you must buy this game. It is an absolute system seller. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about the game. So I'll see you guys next time, where I'll be reviewing Spider-Man, which is another PS4 exclusive. Thanks for watching, and see you then.
We must be better. You must never forget that.